On February 22, 2026, Trump celebrated a victory. Mexican special forces, supported by U.S. military intelligence, eliminated El Mencho. We eliminated one of the most brutal cartel bosses. You saw it yesterday. The leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most wanted criminals on the planet, Trump said. The United States had offered $15 million for his capture. The Deputy Secretary of State wrote on social media, "Good guys are stronger than bad guys." The White House called it a historic success. But just a few hours later, 9 Mexican states were paralyzed. The cartels blocked highways, burned buses, gas stations, and stores. Gunmen announced a $1,200 reward for every police officer killed. The U.S. Department of State urged American citizens to shelter in place and not leave their homes. In the end, 26 people were killed. Among them were 17 security personnel and a pregnant woman. All experts said the same thing. Cartels are like a hydra. Cut off one head and 2 new ones grow back. And this is where the main question appears, the one nobody wants to ask out loud. Why doesn't killing the leader kill the system? Why don't tariffs, military pressure, and $15 million in reward money work the way they were supposed to? Because cartels stopped being just criminal groups a long time ago. They became an economic system. And economic systems don't die with a leader. Today, we're going to break down how 2 Mexican cartels built one of the most sophisticated economic empires in the world, with their own logistics, financial schemes, chemical factories, underground banks, and Chinese partners. A system that operates by the same rules as any multinational corporation, except without taxes, without regulators, and without the right to make mistakes. But let's go back to the very beginning and see how this system works from the inside. On the map of Mexico, there are 2 dominant players, the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, also known as CJNG. At first glance, their territories look chaotic and random, but they're not. It's a logistics map. Every square kilometer of the border with the United States has a price. Every port, every mountain pass, every stretch of desert is an asset, and a real war is fought over it. If you look at this map not as a map of crime, but as a map of business, it reads very differently. To understand where the product comes from and how the entire chain works, we need to start not in Mexico, but in Colombia. The coca plant, the base of cocaine, requires very specific conditions to grow. High altitude, tropical climate, acidic soils, a very specific temperature and humidity level. This combination exists in nature almost exclusively in 3 countries, Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, but not in Mexico. In realizing this, Mexican cartels made a strategic decision that made them richer than almost any producer in the world. They didn't grow the plants, they became distributors. Colombian groups produce cocaine and deliver it by sea, using boats and submarines to the coasts of Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, and southern Mexico. And from there, Mexican cartels take control of the shipment and solve the main problem, getting it to the American market. The producer takes on all the risks of cultivation, processing, and primary transportation. But the distributor takes a margin from someone else's work and controls the most valuable part of the chain, the last mile to the consumer. It works roughly like Amazon, just without an office in Seattle and without a stock exchange. But a distributor has to meet one critical requirement. They must know how to deliver. And for that, cartels built a logistics system many legal companies would envy. Let's break down each method separately because the real story is in the details. Method 1. Trucks. This is the favorite tool of the Jalisco Cartel. The principle is simple. A massive flow of vehicles crosses official border checkpoints. Customs officers can't inspect every single one. And math works in the cartel's favor. If 20 out of 100 trucks make it across the border, the deal is profitable. If 30 make it, it becomes extremely profitable. This isn't just a criminal scheme, it's probability theory in action. Method 2. Tunnels. This is the trademark of the Sinaloa Cartel. Engineering structures connecting warehouses on the Mexican side with warehouses on the American side, with ventilation, lighting, and rails for small carts. Some tunnels are more than 15 meters deep and hundreds of meters long. Loading and unloading happens inside closed commercial buildings. From the outside, it just looks like a normal warehouse. That's exactly why cartels fight so aggressively for control over border cities. Every such city is a potential location for a tunnel. Method 3. Drones. Cheap, disposable, mass-produced. Even if 10 out of 100 drones reach the target, considering the value of the cargo, the operation is still profitable. A drone doesn't testify. A drone doesn't know names. It's the perfect courier. Method 4. Submarines. And this is where things get really interesting. Several years ago, cartels used semi-submersible vessels that could be detected from the air or by satellite. They slightly stuck out above water. But then, fully submersible submarines appeared. They're almost impossible to detect underwater. One such vessel can carry tons of cargo. It's an almost invulnerable delivery system. But every submarine has one vulnerability. If it's intercepted, the crew might talk. So the cartels found a solution. They're working on remote-controlled submarines with no people on board. Not long ago in Colombia, authorities intercepted a submarine equipped with a Starlink antenna for remote control. This is no longer the criminal business of the 1990s with a pistol in your belt. This is a technological arms race, and the cartels are part of it. But the most important strategic decision made by the cartels isn't about logistics. It's about the product itself. Depending on the Colombian harvest means always remaining vulnerable. Bad weather, supply drops. A poor harvest, supply drops. If Colombian authorities run a successful operation, shipments are disrupted. If a competitor strikes a deal with producers before you, you're left without product. A long supply chain is always unstable. And at some point, the cartels ask themselves the same question every smart corporation asks when it hits the limits of its industry. What if we change the product line? And that's when fentanyl and methamphetamine entered the game. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It's 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than cocaine. Methamphetamine is 3 to 4 times more intense than cocaine, and its effects last 10 to 20 times longer. Both substances are produced not from plants, but from chemical precursors. No dependence on nature, no Colombia in the supply chain. Much smaller physical volume for the same or even greater profit. If cocaine is like oil, which has to be extracted from the ground and transported across half the world, then fentanyl is like gas, synthesized in a laboratory in just a few steps. This is a product revolution. But there was one problem that couldn't be ignored. Mexico doesn't have the chemical precursors needed to synthesize fentanyl and methamphetamines. And that's when a partner appeared that nobody expected. That partner was China. Chinese chemical manufacturers and criminal networks supply most of the precursors for fentanyl and methamphetamines to Mexican cartels. The supply mechanism is worked out down to the smallest details. The chemicals are shipped by sea to Mexico's Pacific ports, Manzanillo and Lázaro Cárdenas, often with deliberately falsified customs declarations. There, they pass through shell import companies and end up in laboratories, where cartel chemists synthesize the finished product. And because fentanyl is 100 times more concentrated than cocaine, you need 100 times less volume to satisfy the same demand. That opens completely different possibilities for packaging. The finished powder is pressed into pills that look identical to ordinary pharmaceutical painkillers. Getting them across the border is a completely different level of difficulty compared to transporting bricks of cocaine. A pill weighs just grams. A pill looks like medicine, but it produces the same effect. In 2023, fentanyl killed 74,000 people in the United States, almost 69% of all overdose deaths in the country. This isn't a side effect of the business, it's the price of the cartel's product innovation. But if you think the story ends here, you haven't reached the most interesting part yet. Because the most difficult task for any illegal business isn't production, and it isn't logistics. It's money. Cartels earn billions of dollars inside the United States. The Sinaloa Cartel alone, according to various estimates, generates between $3 and $5 billion a year just from the American market. But how do you move that money back to Mexico without attracting attention? Banks track transactions. Customs monitors border crossings. Financial regulators around the world keep tightening the rules. Traditional methods, restaurants, casinos, cash-heavy stores, work, but they have a ceiling. Through one restaurant, you can push 1 million. Through a chain of restaurants, tens of millions, but not billions. The scale just isn't there. And this is where cartels found a solution that American intelligence agencies call one of the most powerful financial mechanisms in the world today. And once again, China plays a key role in it, but in a completely different role. The system works like this. A cartel representative in Los Angeles has, let's say, $1 million in cash. Driving it across the border means risking confiscation and arrest. Instead, he contacts a Chinese financial broker operating inside the United States. This broker has clients, wealthy Chinese citizens who want to move money out of China. Chinese law sets a strict limit for individuals, no more than $50,000 per year. For someone who has several $1 million and wants to invest abroad, that's a serious restriction. The broker connects both sides. The cartel gives the broker $1 million in cash inside the United States. At the same time, a Chinese client transfers the equivalent amount in yuan to the broker's partner in China. The broker then arranges for that money to be transferred to the account of a legal cartel company in Mexico. The company issues an invoice for some kind of consulting services or equipment supply. Formally, the company belongs to the cartel, but through a multi-layered chain of shell companies, it's almost impossible to trace the real owner. The money arrives in Mexico as a legal bank transfer. The cash in America stays with the broker and gets laundered there through classic schemes. This system is fast, scalable, and almost invisible to investigators. It doesn't violate U.S. capital export laws because the money technically never leaves the country. It uses legal bank transfers between companies, and it exploits the gaps between financial regulatory systems in different countries. Chinese money brokers have now become the main financial operators for the Sinaloa Cartel and others, effectively replacing all previous laundering methods. Most likely, YouTube will limit the reach of this video. The algorithm doesn't like topics like this. So if you want to support the channel, a like and a comment will help more than any advertisement. When an organization has a reliable revenue stream and a well-established financial infrastructure, it starts doing what any successful corporation does. It expands into related industries. It builds vertical integration. It looks for new markets. And this is exactly where the cartels made a move that few people expected. Tortillas, limes, avocados. Today, 20,000 tortilla shops across Mexico pay cartels a tax just for the right to operate. That's about 15% of the entire industry. The Mexican government was even forced to deploy 660 soldiers and National Guard troops to protect lime producers suffering from systematic extortion. Avocado farmers in the state of Michoacan pay cartels a percentage from every harvest. And this isn't just racketeering in the traditional sense. Avocados from Mexico are the largest agricultural export of the country. Mexico supplies about 80% of all the avocados consumed in the United States. When a cartel controls avocado producers, it inserts itself directly into the international trade chain. Its money moves inside a legal export flow. This is no longer a shadow economy parasitizing the official one. This is a shadow economy that has grown so deeply into the official economy that the two are now almost impossible to separate. And where journalists get in the cartel's way, they deal with that problem systematically. Mexico is among the deadliest countries in the world for journalists. Reporters investigating cartel activity or corruption inside government institutions work under constant threat. As a result, mass self-censorship has emerged. Newspapers and radio stations in cartel-controlled areas publish only what benefits the cartels, or publish nothing at all. Less than 1% of journalist murders in Mexico end with a conviction. That means one thing: the media space has also become part of the vertical integration. At this point, a logical question appears. How is a system of this scale even possible? After all, there is the police, there is the army, there are courts, there are prisons. Let's talk about prisons. In Mexico, the following phenomenon is well documented. Major drug traffickers continue to run their businesses from behind bars. The most famous example is Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the founder of the Sinaloa Cartel. He escaped from Mexican maximum security prisons twice, in 2001 and 2015. The second escape was especially humiliating for the authorities. The prisoner disappeared through a tunnel dug directly under his prison cell. After that, Mexico was forced to extradite him to the United States in 2017. Only then was his real influence over cartel operations finally broken. This isn't an anomaly, it's a system. Prison guards in Mexico and across Latin America are generally poorly paid and work under constant pressure. The cartel offers them a choice: take the money or take the consequences. And the consequences don't apply only to the guard himself, they apply to his family and his loved ones. In a system like that, refusing to cooperate requires real heroism, and there aren't many heroes among people who aren't even paid enough for a normal life. But prison for a cartel boss isn't only a risk, it's also protection. In prison, there are no competitors. Outside, enemies are hunting you. Inside, you are surrounded by your own people, protected by guards personally loyal to you, and you run the business through a phone that gets brought to you every day. At the same time, cartels build control over the political system. Where money doesn't work, threats work. Where threats don't work, money works. The combination of these two tools reaches most levels of government in the most problematic regions of the country. Local officials, judges, military officers. Many of them operate in a system where the cartel is one of the key participants in the political process. At this point, it's worth pausing and looking at the scale of what we're talking about. Human trafficking has become the second largest business line for cartels, about $13 billion a year. For comparison, in 2018, this figure was $500 million. That's 2,500% growth in just 8 years. But let's return to our main topic. No legal industry in the world has shown that kind of growth. The 74,000 Americans who died from fentanyl in just 1 year is more than the United States lost during the entire Vietnam War. According to various estimates, the total annual revenue of Mexican cartels from all activities exceeds $50 billion. For comparison, that's roughly equal to the combined annual budgets of several Mexican states. But the most important number isn't financial. The most important number is 1%. Less than 1% of crimes in Mexico end with a conviction. That means one thing: the justice system operates in a situation where the overwhelming majority of crimes go unpunished. In a system like that, the deterrent effect of the law is almost zero. This isn't a flaw of the system. This is its normal operating condition. When we think about economic power, we usually think about governments, central banks, and multinational corporations. We think about stock exchanges, boards of directors, and regulators. We think about systems that can be seen, audited, and held accountable. The story of Mexican cartels shows something different. It shows that any actor who controls logistics, financial flows, and production chains becomes economic power. It doesn't matter whether it has a national flag, a legal address, or a line in the Fortune 500 list. Cartels control supply routes better than most logistics companies. Their financial schemes are more complex than those of many legal banks. They pay salaries to more people than the governments of entire regions. They influence media space, political decisions, and the judicial system. Cartels stopped being just crime a long time ago. They became an economy, parallel, invisible, but very real. And that is the most important thing to understand about how the world works beyond official economic statistics. The real question isn't, how do we stop them? The real question is different. What happens to a state when a parallel economic system becomes stronger than the official one? When the shadow economy stops being a shadow and becomes the foundation? If you watched until the end, write your opinion in the comments. And if you like the channel, subscribe. I wish you all the best and see you next time.